We are a family of 4 living in Finland, and we recently just came back from a trip to Japan. In this video, we'll have a chat about our semi-planned, very laid-back trip to Japan. We'll talk about getting to Japan and our experience at the airport, as well as things that surprised me about Japan as a first-time visitor. I'll share a few tips and thoughts about some places we visited, and lastly, I'll show you some of my favorite souvenirs that we got from Japan. Hey there, my name is Shirley, and if we've never met before, I live in Finland with my Finnish husband and our 2 kids. This channel usually talks about life in Finland, but since Japan is almost like an unofficial sister country to Finland, I thought I might share some tips and tricks and also our experience first time visiting Japan. We visited Japan in the middle of January and we went to Tokyo. That's where we spent most of our time, and we also took a very short trip to Nagano. We didn't go to any of the major attractions, so in this video I'm not gonna give you the perfect 10-day trip to Japan. As you can imagine, traveling with small kids versus traveling alone or just as a couple is very different, but I hope this video provides you with some insight into what Japan is like. This was actually part of a large family trip that my aunt from California planned for us. So we met my aunt and her 2 sons, who are my cousins, and they're both married with their wives. One cousin has a baby that's 6 months old, and the other cousin's wife is expecting, and that's why we took it easy while in Japan and didn't really plan too much. So without further ado, let's get to the first topic, getting there. We got to Japan via Finnair, and it was a direct flight. Unfortunately, because we cannot fly over Russia at the moment, which I didn't really think about that much, the flight took about 14 hours. A normal flight there, if we were able to go into Russian airspace, probably would have taken 8 hours. So our son is 5.5 and our daughter is just about to turn 3. So that gives you a little bit of context in terms of what we'll be talking about for the rest of the video. There was a lot of entertainment on the plane's TV or screen, and our kids managed a 14-hour flight. Getting to Japan, we took the southern route, which means we went this way, and then coming back, we took the northern route. So going over Russia, we flew over Lapland on our way back, and we were able to see the northern lights on the plane, which was so amazing. Although it was hard for me to capture a nice photo for you, so this is the best I could get. And then the flight attendants went around passing these diplomas out to everybody, and my kid was trying to draw what they saw out the window. Prior to landing, we filled out all of our information on the Visit Japan web. That just helps you get through immigration a lot faster. Instead of filling out paperwork or doing it when you get there, you just scan a QR code once you arrive, and getting through customs was extremely easy. There are 2 airports in Tokyo. One is Haneda and one is Narita. Haneda is closer to the city center, and Narita is about an hour and a half away from the city center. So we ended up flying into Haneda. Like many countries, there are forbidden foods that you're not allowed to take into Japan, such as meat products and fruit and vegetables and stuff like that. And after deplaning, there were a couple spots where you can drop off the forbidden stuff that you brought with you or acquired on board. And then what was funny was at the luggage pickup area, they had dogs sniffing people's bags for food. And that was so cute because the dog was like a tiny little beagle, but the dog ended up sniffing out a passenger's backpack near us, and he had to take his food out and they had to inspect it. So I thought that was really cute. Once we landed, we realized that the airline forgot to pack our stroller onto the plane. So that kind of delayed us getting out of the airport, but they were super helpful about it. We filled out paperwork. We used the Google Translate app if we weren't able to communicate with the worker there. But Finnair ended up loaning us a stroller, and the stroller was delivered to our Airbnb a few days later. They got put on the next flight and they arranged a delivery for that. So at least we were still able to use the stroller. Because we had 2 small kids with us and we had just gotten off a really long flight, we did not want to bother with taking the train. And a large taxi was able to take us to the Airbnb, which was not too far away. We packed a car seat for our daughter and then also a booster seat for our son, but we actually didn't end up using it in Tokyo, even though we took taxis everywhere. Because in the larger taxis, there are 2 seats in the middle row that are individual seats, and they kind of act as a car seat. So I just had my daughter on my lap and we sat in that seat, and my son, who's 5.5, sat in the seat next to us. We didn't take long trips in a taxi, so that worked out well for us, and we didn't use our car seats at all, so we just ended up lugging around. Coming back, we did use a luggage forwarding service. The one that we ended up using is called Yamato Transport. They had an office a few steps away from our Airbnb, and it was just extremely convenient. They were not able to take the car seats in the car seat bags. They said that it had to be in a box, and they didn't have boxes that size to fit that. So we ended up giving 2 large suitcases to the transport company. A lot of people in Japan use these luggage forwarding services because public transportation can get very crowded and elevators are not always easy to find. So instead of lugging your large luggages around Tokyo trying to get to your hotel, it's best to use a luggage and forwarding service or just take a taxi. Now, it does take about 2 days for your luggage to get to your destination, so you might want to plan ahead if you decide to use a luggage forwarding service. When I went to go pick up our luggage at the airport on our way back, it was very easy to find the kiosk, and when I filled out the paperwork, I actually accidentally put in the wrong terminal. But when you fill out the paperwork for an airport, they do ask you for your airline and your flight, and so they sent me an email in English telling me that I put down the wrong terminal, and then they directed me to the correct terminal. Some things that surprised me about Japan for a first-time visitor is that they drive on the other side of the road. I had no idea that they did that in Japan, and I was so surprised. When we got into the taxi, I directed my husband to the front seat, and then he went to the driver's side because in Finland and in the US, you drive on the left, and in Japan, they drive on the right. So I don't think I could ever rent a car in Japan, even if I wanted to. I cannot imagine driving on the opposite side of the road in a foreign country. Temperatures in Japan felt warmer than usual. I guess I'm just getting used to Finland weather, that I overdressed and I overpacked. So when kids go out in Finland, they're usually dressed in overalls, which is like a full-on bodysuit. And so I took those for our kids because coming from Finland in January, that's what they wear. And we got some looks as we were walking down the street because kids in Japan do not wear that. They just wear probably 2 pairs of pants when it's cold and a couple layers of jackets. So we definitely looked out of place. You know how sometimes the number for the temperature could be a little bit deceiving? Like 50 degrees in California versus 50 degrees in Finland might feel very different. So for us visiting from Finland, it definitely felt a lot warmer. And the sun was out almost every single day, which we were so thankful for because we had just come from a very, very cloudy Finland. And so seeing the sun every day was such a blessing. When you think about food in Japan, you might think sushi, you might think ramen, you might think curry or soba. I did not realize that Wagyu beef came from Japan. Now, call me ignorant. I've definitely heard of Wagyu beef before, but I've never really looked into it. I didn't realize that this is something that you get in Japan and it's very popular there. So that definitely surprised me when I saw Wagyu beef everywhere. We had Korean barbecue style Wagyu beef. We went to the fish market and had Wagyu beef on a stick that was grilled right in front of you. And we also had Wagyu burgers, which was one of the most tasty burgers I've ever had. The texture of the beef was just so juicy and tender. I would definitely want to try another Wagyu beef burger. Because my aunt's family left a few days earlier than us, we ended up moving to another Airbnb that was closer to Disneyland. The city that we stayed in was called Ichikawa, and it's part of the Chiba prefecture. So it was more like staying in the suburbs, and I ended up visiting a grocery store, which if you are a longtime follower of the channel, you know how much I love grocery stores. And it was really interesting to shop at a Japanese grocery store. The most fascinating thing about grocery stores in Japan for me was their checkout system. So you will bring your basket of groceries to the cashier will ring up the items for you and then put it in another basket next to the cashier. From then, you take the basket and you take it to a pay station. So you don't pay at the cashier, you take it to a station and then you pay there. And then you take your basket to the bagging stand. There's like 3 stations. And then at the bagging station, you have to, in Japan, much like in Finland, you have to bring your own shopping bags unless you want to purchase one from the store. So luckily I was prepared and I brought my own. They also have smaller plastic bags if you wanted to bag food and liquid things and stuff like that if you don't want it to spill in your bag. And then they have this little ball here. You can put your finger on it and it gives you some type of liquid so that it's easier for you to open the thin plastic bag. So I thought that was really interesting. I was kind of paying attention to the person in front of me, how everything worked, and then I was able to figure it out. But it's just so fun seeing how different countries does grocery shopping. What also surprised me about Japan is the affordability of just everyday things. The yen is a little bit weaker right now and the euro and the dollar is stronger. So when I converted everything into dollars or euros, I was so surprised at how affordable everything was. Except the taxis. I probably spent the most amount of money on taxis during this trip, and also grapes. My daughter really likes eating green grapes, and so when I went to the supermarket, I picked up a basket of green grapes, not knowing that this variety of green grapes, which is called the Shine Muscat, is like a premium fruit in Japan. I bought a whole bunch of stuff, and when I looked on the receipt, the most expensive thing by far were these grapes. These grapes are really large in size, and they're seedless, but they're super sweet. To me, it almost had a faint taste of lychee. It didn't taste too much like grapes or other type of green grapes I've had before. And I also didn't know that Japan is one of the largest producers of grapes. During our 10-day trip to Japan, we also took a brief trip to Nagano, and we took the Shinkansen, which is one of the bullet trains trains in Japan. On the Shinkansen, there are two types of tickets. You can buy tickets that are reserved, meaning you will definitely get a seat. And then the other type of ticket, you just board the train, and then if there are open seats, you can sit. If there are not, you will have to stand. Like I said, because we didn't really plan anything out ahead of time, we purchased our tickets at the last minute. So we just winged it and got onto the train carts that were open to everybody. We did end up finding seats, but they were very sporadic. One tip that I want to let you know, and as you're doing research for Japan, you might have heard from other people telling you this, give yourself plenty of time to go to a train station in Japan. The Shinkansen that we took left from Ueno Station, and the station was so big, there were metros going in and out of it and also bullet trains, so it took us a long time to find the right platform. When I told my cousins that we had to leave like an hour before the train arrived, everybody looked at me and was like, why do you want to leave so early? And then we ended up rushing, and when we finally got there, we only had a couple minutes to spare before the train came. So definitely give yourself plenty of time if this is your first time getting on a train in Japan. We stayed at a resort called Le Grand Karuizawa. My cousins wanted to go snowboarding in Japan, so that's why we ended up taking this short trip to Nagano. We only stayed one night at the resort, and it was a lovely resort. They also had an onsen there, but unfortunately I wasn't able to go because let's just say it was the time of the month, and my best friend came to visit. As I was doing research on how onsens work, I didn't realize that you go there completely naked, just like how Finnish saunas are. Next time we go to Japan, I am definitely getting myself into an onsen to experience what that's like. All right, so here are some places that we visited, and here are some tips and thoughts. On one of the days in Tokyo, we visited the Tsukiji fish market. It was definitely a tourist trap, especially if you go down the main road. If you do happen to visit this fish market, I would go inside the smaller roads and try to find food there, because everything on the main road tend to be a little bit more overpriced. And we also got matcha ice cream from there, but it came from like a little pod. The guy just took out a pod and put it into the machine, and then ice cream came out. The matcha tasted nice, but the ice cream itself had a weird aftertaste to it. So I would definitely recommend you veering into some of the smaller roads in the fish market and try to find a matcha ice cream there, because you'll probably find more authentic ice cream. At the fish market, besides tasting yummy seafood, you're also able to pick up souvenirs. But like I said, this is definitely very touristy, but sometimes you can find good gems there too. There was a store that sold ceramics at the fish market, and we picked up a few ramen bowls that I really like and that I'm really happy with. Since we had kids with us, we also visited teamLabs. There are two teamLabs in Tokyo. The one we visited was teamLab Planets. So this one is a little bit more immersive and interactive, versus the other one is more visual. teamLab Planets invokes all your senses. So the museum is divided into 4 sections. There's the forest exhibit, the garden exhibit, water exhibit, and then also like an open air outdoor exhibit, which is just basically where the restaurant is, and they had maybe like a statue or two outside. My tip for visiting teamLab is to eat before you go, because this place has so much to do and see that you can just spend hours in there, especially if you have young kids. They just might not want to leave. You definitely have to purchase your tickets ahead of time, and you have a dedicated time slot in which you can enter the museum. When we got there, there were 2 street food vendors outside selling like corn dogs and also sausages. We ended up getting sausages for our kids. I myself had a corn dog, and I was really thankful I ate before we went in, because like I said, there's so much to do in there that you're gonna get hungry really fast. They do have a restaurant inside this teamLab. They only served vegan ramen, so if that's not your thing, you might want to just eat something before you go in. So there are free lockers for you to use in different parts of the museum, and in my opinion, the way that we went through the museum worked out really well for us with little kids, and I'll explain why. So we started with the forest exhibit. The forest exhibit was like an interactive exhibit where you can use your phone through an app. You can capture the animals on the screen, learn about them, and then release them back out into the wild. So my son had a field day in there. And in the forest exhibit, there's also a lot of different types of interactive things on the wall, but it is very dark in there. So if you're traveling with very young kids, just keep in mind that it might be a little too overstimulating for them. There's this huge slide where you slide down and fireworks will shoot up on the wall. Not real fireworks, like firework projections will shoot up into the wall. And there were climbing structures, and there was also this one area where you can color a picture, scan it in, and whatever you colored will turn into life on the screen on the wall. So you can see like a bird flying or an airplane flying or a butterfly fluttering on the wall. There was an outline for each animal or thing that you can color in, and it's great for little kids because you can also color outside of the lines. It doesn't really matter. When they scan it, it only stays within the lines of the drawing. So that was a really cool exhibit. I honestly felt a little bit overwhelmed in the forest exhibit because it was very dark, because a lot of artwork are projections. So there's just a lot of blinking lights and different colored lights in a very dark room. There was also a door near the entrance of the forest exhibit that had like plastic looking like rocks that lit up, and that was in an outdoor area. We ended up going there after we visited all of the other forest exhibits, which ended up being really nice because you got to breathe some outdoor air. It was much quieter there, and so you got to kind of like calm down and relax a little bit. After the forest, we went to the garden exhibit. The garden exhibit is much smaller than the forest exhibit, and our kids really didn't like it because they had orchids hanging from the ceiling and they kind of like drop down and get lifted back up again, and my kids thought that was really creepy, so they did not like that room at all. So we didn't spend too much time in there, and because they couldn't really touch the flowers or anything, they just really didn't like that exhibit. But it's a really cool spot if you want to get a nice picture, and so we probably spend the least amount of time in the garden area. Prior to going, I read reviews on Google, and everybody said to go to the water exhibit last because the water exhibit is probably the most fun for everybody. Reason being, you have to take off your shoes. When my son heard that there was actually going to be real water that he can touch, he got so excited and threw off his shoes and threw off his socks. So you first go up this hill, where I call it the cleansing hill, because there's a stream of water that rushes down the hill, and as you're climbing, I think they're sanitizing everybody's feet because everybody has to go in barefoot, and you can just imagine the amount of feet that touch the water in there. And then it ultimately leads you into this huge pool of water. Again, like all the exhibits in teamLabs is like dark. There's this large pool of water, and you wade around in the water. You have to roll up your pants. My son, who is about 120 centimeters tall, had to take off his pants because the water went up to his thighs, and he didn't want to be carried. He wanted to walk around himself. So we ended up taking off his pants, and he just went around in his underwear, but he had a lot of fun. I was holding my 2.5-year-old because she was definitely too small for that pool of water. Definitely smelled like chlorine. My son even commented that it smelled like a swimming pool in there. So we went during the winter time. I just cannot imagine all the nasty and sweaty feet during the summertime in that pool of water. But I guess that's why they have chlorine in there. When we got through all the exhibits, we were extremely hungry, so we made a stop at the ramen place there and had dinner there. And my son had so much fun that he asked to go back into all the exhibits once more. And I was like, I am so tired. I do not want to go back in. And so my husband volunteered and took him back into the exhibits once more, while my daughter and I waited outside for them. She was getting a little bit tired too, and I was trying to put her down for a nap in the stroller. So we were kind of just strolling around in the open air area. While we were strolling around, we found the souvenir station, which could easily be missed because everything inside is so dark that it took up a tiny room in the museum. They had some small souvenirs you can purchase, but what was cool about this place is that, remember that exhibit I told you earlier where you can color in things and it turns to life on the walls? Well, they're able to download your kid's artwork or your friend or your artwork and put it on a t-shirt or a tote bag. And they also had like pins and small hand towels. So while we waited, I turned my kid's artwork into both a t-shirt and a tote bag. The quality of the t-shirt is just so nice. So this is what it looks like. There's different backgrounds you can choose. So my daughter did this scribbly artwork here and my son colored in a bird. These t-shirts are 100% cotton, and then they also have this embroidered logo here on the corner of the shirt. So I thought these were really nice. And then they also have this sewn in too at the bottom of the shirt. So I got one for my daughter and I got one for my son, and I think this was around $20. And I got myself a tote bag with their artwork on it. So this tote bag also has the embroidered logo on the corner, and this tote bag is made of 60% recycled cotton. So if you're somebody that prefers a little bit more personalized souvenirs for your friends and family, this is a great place to go. Oh, about those hand towels that you can also make using the artwork. So in Japan, not all restrooms will have tissue paper for you to dry your hands. So instead, a lot of people carry their own personal hand towel with them. They're about a square this big, and when I went to a public restroom one time, I actually saw 2 or 3 locals taking out their own little hand towels. And the cool thing about the souvenir stand is that it took them about 15 minutes for them to finish printing our shirts and tote bag for us. The guy there gave me a little slip of paper and it was like, come back at this time. So it was really easy to track. I just went back and picked it up. Okay, let's talk about Don Quixote, or also known as Donki. So Donki is a popular discount store and they sell a variety of different things. When I was planning this trip to Japan, I watched a few videos and a lot of people told me to go to this store to buy some really nice Japanese things. But nobody told me in those videos how crazy this store is. For a country with a lot of introverted people, I don't know why this shop is so overwhelming. It was really loud and distracting, and I'll tell you why. Almost every item sold, especially in the beauty aisle, had like a screen with its infomercial playing. Now imagine a full floor full of things and like 100 different TVs going off at you at the same time. So that's one thing. The products on the shelves make noise, and then they also play music in the store really, really loud. There's like a Donki theme song that they play over and over again. And then on top of that, LED lights are added to all the shelves, so there's always lights flashing at you, and they hang crazy things on the ceilings that like spin. And it was just so overwhelming for me to shop in there that I ended up putting in my noise canceling headphones just to be able to survive the shopping trip. The good thing about shopping here though is that of course they offer tax-free, and if you do decide to take advantage of that, you have to show them your passport, and just know that they're going to be bagging all of your things into these large duty-free shopping bags like the ones you see at airports. So while we stayed in Ichikawa, we ended up visiting the Tokyo Sea Life Aquarium. This place had a tank full of sharks and also a huge tank of tuna fish. I didn't realize how big tuna fish was and how silvery their skin is. The entrance fee for this place was really affordable. It was only 700 yen per adult, and kids under 12 was free. And there was also a large Ferris wheel nearby, and we ended up going there as well. With a Tokyo Sea Life ticket, you were able to get a discount on the Ferris wheel. And the height of the Ferris wheel reached about 117 meters off the ground, and we were able to get a small peek of Mount Fuji off into the distance. The reason why I wanted to stay in Ichikawa was because they were semi-close to Disneyland. I visited Disneyland when I was, I think, maybe 9 years old, because things in Tokyo are a little bit more affordable than, let's say, the US or Europe. So I wanted to take this opportunity to visit Disneyland with my kids. Unfortunately, my daughter got pretty sick, so my husband and her ended up staying at the Airbnb, and I went on a solo trip with my son, who again is 5.5. And let's just say that this is not something I would recommend. Fans of Disneyland, don't come at me for this. I just think a 5.5-year-old is a little bit too young to be going to Disneyland. We went on a Saturday, and the price for an adult was 9,900 yen, and for my son it was 5,600 yen. Aged 12 to 17 are priced at 8,200. And because we went during off season, I think it might have been a little bit cheaper. If you go during the summer, I think it's a little bit more than that. So when we arrived, there was a parade going on, and it was so loud. My son was like, I don't want to be here. And I looked at him and I was like, okay, we're gonna just try to be here for a little bit. Of course, there are lines everywhere. There are lines to get drinks. There are lines to get snacks. There are super long lines to get on rides that are maybe 2 minutes max. And it just didn't feel like a trip that was worth it for me. When we're out and about, our son doesn't really sit in a stroller, and it just didn't occur to me to bring the stroller with us. And I remembered in the taxi, and I felt really stupid. We tried to rent a stroller at Disneyland, but unfortunately he was too tall for it. I think their limit for stroller rentals at Disneyland Tokyo was 100 centimeters, and my son was already about 120, and they saw him, they were like, sorry, he's too big for the strollers, but you can rent a wheelchair. And my son was like, no, I don't want to sit in a wheelchair. We didn't end up going to a lot of rides because the lines were just so long. There were express passes, but it was just too overwhelming, and I think you had to select a time for you to go to a specific attraction, and it was just too much. And so we didn't stay very long, and at least now I know not to bring them back to Disneyland until they're maybe 10 or 11. Another thing worth mentioning is that we did visit a couple of those conveyor belt sushi restaurants. That was super fun for my son. We went to both Sushiro and Kura Sushi. What to know about these places is that it's mostly self-service. When you enter, there's a station right by the entrance where you have to pick up your own cups, and if you need forks or napkins, you have to pick that up yourself too. At the tables, they have a spout there that dispenses hot water, so you can make your own tea. If you want cold water, you probably have to go to the entrance and get your own like ice water there. You can order either on the iPad or your phone by scanning an app, and the whole thing behind these restaurants is that everything is gamified. So the more you eat, the more plates you have. You can trade the plates for a chance at winning one of the prizes. In one of them, my son won this little clear coin bank thing, and then at one of the other ones we went to, there was a little slot in the table, and you can just put your empty plates in like coins. And every time you put in 5 plates, you got a chance to play the game. It had like a gotcha machine at the top, and if you won, you would get like a little ball of surprise for you. A gotcha is like a vending machine, and all the toys are dispensed in these like plastic balls. We also visited McDonald's because we had trouble finding foods that our kids would eat, so we went to McDonald's and got chicken nuggets for them. The Happy Meals there are so cute. Not only was it really affordable, the toys that came along with it were like Japanese toys, and they're so cute. This one is Sumiko Gurashi themed. They're kind of like these little ghost looking like creatures. So this one is like McDonald's kiosk, and the character looks like a chicken nugget. And what was also interesting is as one of the sides you can choose for your kids when you get a Happy Meal is a combination of corn and edamame beans. I think the burger that I got had an egg in it, and then I also just had like a fish fillet. Nothing too special. Feeling a little under the weather, so let's take a tea break. Okay, I'm going to show you some of my favorite souvenirs that I picked up from this trip. Before we left for Tokyo, I rented a My Neighbor Totoro book for our kids, just so that they can kind of get immersed in Japanese culture. And they ended up really liking the story. So I found this Art of Totoro book from Donki, and it was 3,300 yen. And it just kind of shows you the process of how they made Totoro, and it includes some really cool sketches and watercolors in here. My son has also been drawing a lot of Totoros and the cat bus, so I wanted to get this to show him how the movie came about and how you start with a sketch and turn it into a cartoon. Look at these. Aren't these pretty? So I touched upon gachapons earlier, but these machines that dispenses little toys are like everywhere. There are train stations, there are restaurants, there are stores that are dedicated just to gachapons, and it's really fun to chase down different themes. So of course, each machine will have a theme. This one here, I put 2 in here just to save space because it was too much plastic. This is a Souvenir family cutlery and play set, and it's like a nice little box, and when you open it up, this is what it looks like. So Souvenir families is just what they call calico crickers here in Japan. There's 2 different names for it, but it's basically the same thing. And the price for these gachapon machines are really affordable in my opinion. Like a usual machine will be 300 yen. Some more fancy ones will cost probably 500 yen, but it's still pretty affordable compared to the prices in the US or in the EU. And I really love miniature things, so I wanted to pick up a few gachapon souvenirs just for myself. Here's the collection of all the ones that I got. And this bag I picked up at a, I think, Japanese dollar store or somewhere along the lines of that. I think it's meant for IDs, but you can also put gachapons in here. The very first one that I was able to get is this gold Mario. I used to play Super Mario when I was a kid, and each machine will have a surprise item or a blind item, and this was the blind item for that series. And for being the very first gachapon that I got in Japan, I ended up getting the gold one, which is the blind one, and it's just so cute. And then I also got a pair of Hunter rain boots, even though I never really owned Hunter rain boots myself. I really wanted one, but they were just too pricey. So now I have a tiny pair. And there was also a 90s themed one, and I picked up a cassette tape, as well as a box of Fat Witch brownies. So Fat Witch Brownies is a company that sells brownies in New York City, and when I used to work and live there, I would get these on a weekly basis probably. Chelsea Market, I think is what's called. When you open this box, there's tiny ones inside. I mean, this is just a sticker. And I also got a little sausage guy. My kids really like to eat sausages. They're called nakis here in Finland, and this just reminds me of them. So I have my little gachapon collection here that I will take it out to look at once in a while to remind me of my Japan trip. By Ueno Station, which was close to our Airbnb, there was also a Uniqlo, and I just got some heat tech stuff for us. And then I also picked up a Tamagotchi Uniqlo collab. So I was thinking about giving this to my son for his birthday, but now I'm having second thoughts because I don't really want him to get addicted to looking at screens at such a young age. If you know how Tamagotchis work, you basically have to keep this little guy alive by feeding him and letting him sleep and things like that. But I definitely had one when I was a kid, and this just brought back so many memories, and I might just hold on to it for a few years before we open it. And this was 2,990 yen. I also picked up a Daruma doll. So people often buy these Daruma dolls as good luck charms, and they come in different sizes and different colors as well. So what you do with these dolls is that you can set a goal for yourself, and once you set the goal, you can color in one of his eyes. You can see that he has no pupils here, so you can color in one of his eyes. And once you hit your goal, you can go ahead and color in the other eye. So you can keep this on your desk or on your shelf to remind you of your goal. And these dolls are also a symbol of perseverance because these don't really tip over. So you can try to knock them down, but they will ultimately come back up. So kind of like the metaphor, if you get knocked down, just get back up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a goal of hitting 100,000 subscribers on this channel. So I'll color in one eye. And once I hit my goal of 100,000, I'm going to color in the other eye. I think I'm going to get pretty annoyed looking at it sitting on the shelf with just one eye. But I think this is such a little fun souvenir to bring back. I didn't know this at the time. There's different colors of the doll, and each color symbolizes something different. I think this is a gold one or a yellow one, and it's supposed to signify money and wealth. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. So I'm a big lover of stationery, and there is a stationery store called Itoya in Ginza that I got to visit on my own. The store had many levels, but it was very small and narrow and cramped. But I did pick up this bag called Shupato by the company Marna, and it's a reusable bag that comes in different sizes. So there's a little band here that you can use to close it. But the idea for this is that you put it in your bag and take it out when you need to use it, like a tote bag. So this one is the small one here. It's a little hard to see, but it's almost like a boat-shaped bag. And this is the Itoya branded collab bag that I got. What's cool about this bag is when you're done using it, there's tabs here. You pull the two sides and it comes together, kind of folds like Japanese origami. You just fold it up like this again, and then you can roll it up and voila. I didn't want to go too crazy with the stationery, but I did pick up a couple of stickers while in Japan. So I got this sheet here. This was 326 yen. This one here was 308, and it's got like a little bit of gold foil. And then I also got this Totoro one. If you're into Japanese beauty items, download the app Peke. It looks like this. But the way you use this app is you just scan the barcode of any beauty item in Japan, and it'll give you a description of what it does and what it's good for in your language. Oh, and they also have coupons. I totally didn't see this. Look, they have a Don Quixote coupon for 7% off here too. So a couple of items that I picked up from Donki, personal care items. Like I got a whole bag full of them. I'm not gonna go through all of them, but this toothbrush was really interesting. So I'll just go ahead and scan the code here, or scan the barcode. This is the E Premium Wide toothbrush. There are more than 35,000 ultra-fine bristles, smooth even when brushed with just water. And it also says it's so fluffy, it's also perfect for massaging your gums. All right, the last souvenir I'm gonna show you. So we visited in January, and all of their Valentine's Day chocolates were out on shelves in supermarkets, and I was able to pick up this Moomin themed pencil box that also has chocolates on the inside. These are Hattivattis. This is by the chocolate company Mary's, and there are little chocolate bars inside. It's just so cute, and this was super affordable too. And there were a couple different other ones that, thinking back now, I wish I had gotten because the tins were so cute. But I've been trying to not go crazy with collecting different tins, so I just allowed myself to buy one. All right, I am running out of steam, so this brings us to the end of the video. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you like what you see, subscribe to my channel and give this video a like or a share. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye.